Hello friends, Fellowship has released its first major content patch, which is going to be a Halloween themed event. On top of this event, we're also getting a few updates, and we're going to be taking a look at the patch notes to see what will be contained in this patch. The first major change is going to be an update to the UI components. We have a very first implementation of updated buff tracking. If you're playing a hero that is pretty complex and requires a lot of buff tracking, like Malevolence Mara perhaps, you're probably familiar with the idea that this game has just a lot of buffs going on and there's just too much to track. So what Chief Rebel have done is they've basically introduced a separate buff bar that is exclusive to each hero, and then Chief Rebel has basically whitelisted certain buffs exclusive to the hero that you're playing that will be defined into this important hero buff. So just to quickly illustrate what this new buff tracker looks like, if you go into the edit HUD, there's going to be a few different buff bars and they look a little different. So first we have hero buffs. This is going to be the same exact buff tracker that we had previously. This will show what your weapon buffs are. If you have any buffs from HOTS from Sylvie, for example. And then we also have the debuff bar, which again, it functions the exact same as what it had in the past. And then the new feature that was added is this important hero buffs. And this new buff bar, this is what tracks your hero's specific buffs coming from talents, from your abilities and stuff like that. As an example, if I have Malevolence that I'm playing here, and a few other things like Assassin's Guile, those should be displayed down in this buff bar here. So we're gonna start off by hitting a few of the dummies, and you see Deadly Scheme is starting to track, Malevolence is being tracked down here, and then up top here we have our weapon traits and stuff like that. So it's just a lot better and a lot easier to track this stuff now. So overall, this is a pretty big buff if you're playing something like Malevolence Mara. So we're really happy to see this change come through. However, it's also important to note that this is only a very first implementation and kind of a temporary band-aid fix to the buff tracking. Hamish has said in his developer update video that they plan on eventually implementing a method for you to fully customize your buff bars, so that way you can add and edit which buffs are being tracked inside of each bar, but there's no timeline on when that feature is going to be released. So in the meantime, we've been given a temporary solution, which still is sufficient for a lot of the heroes and the current roster. In addition to this, there's also some updates to some active abilities. So the examples that they gave here are Sylvie and Ilarion. There's a few abilities that don't really have clear indicators on how active they are. They're not something like a damage over time effect or like a debuff or a buff. So it's kind of hard to predict how long something is going to last. So the examples are Sylvie's Life Bloom and Ilarion's Starfall Volley. These will now have little cast bars or little borders around the ability to show what the active time is. So it now has this yellow timer indicating how long the ability is going to be active for. Moving along though, the next are the general updates. And again, this is highlighting the major changes for the new Halloween event that's going on. And as you probably have seen already, the Stronghold got a little bit of a spooky update. It's a little bit of a darker, foggier theme. You got some more jack-o'-lanterns going on here, and you got spooky trees and spirits going on, but there's also some skin elements where you can basically play through a few dungeons as these different heroes. And as you complete 10 different dungeons, it can be any type of dungeon, could be quick play, it can be eternal, whatever. As long as you complete 10 per hero, you will get a skin exclusive to that hero. And then each hero also gets some new skins unlocked. So this is what Mara's witch outfit looks like. So if I did complete 10 dungeons with Mara, I would get the Skittering Coven's outfit. And then if I just swap to something like Tarek, I really like Tarek's outfit, so I would definitely be going for this at some point, but you get a little Frankenstein outfit going on here. Very cool, love to see it. And let's just see what Helena looks like. We get a skeletal Helena, which is pretty cool. So excited to see these little events going on, and definitely going to be keeping it more interesting during the holiday season that we got coming up. Skins are not the only things that we're getting. We also are going to be getting a few mounts. So if you come up to this vendor here, you can purchase a few different mounts. This is also where you get the actual outfit for the hero that you're playing. So it'll cost a little bit of gold. You just have to, again, complete the 10 dungeons on that hero, and then it should unlock the purchase option for that hero. So very cool to see, and excited to see what kind of mounts will be coming in the future. And then moving on to some of the general fixes, there's not really too much of note here. I guess the biggest change is going to be they're disabling Steam profile pictures, because there have been some lewd pictures shown for some users, and instead they kind of just have this little emblem system up here, which I think they said that they're going to add some different options to choose from in the future. So I don't know if that's gonna mean you kind of show different rankings in here or something. They're gonna be doing something a little bit more custom in the future, but right now Steam profile pictures are gone. And then jumping into a few of the UI updates, again, we already discussed about the active ability timer. That's gonna be a new feature. There's also the new important hero buff bar, so we already went over that. But you also are able to customize the direction that these buff bars grow. So for example, you can change it. So like these bars are horizontal currently. You can actually change it so that it expands vertically instead, if that's something you're more interested in. So just giving a little bit more customization options to the player, which is always a good thing. They've also updated the death recap window. So when you die, it no longer says that you died due to like the environment or something like that. It'll actually show a bit more of a proper cause of death, I suppose. So it'll show like melee damage, it'll show ability damage, stuff like that. So it's a lot more informative now. I know that I've certainly had a lot of occasions where I was just like, what the hell just killed me? I just went from 50% to dead suddenly, and I had no idea what actually was the cause of death. So this will be appreciated. This helps players learn what deadly mechanics actually are, and I think overall it'll be a better, clearer experience. And then moving into some of the progression item updates. So Artios and Rhyme were previously not able to loot the Saltwash Elixir, which is a relic that heals you. So they can now add this to their loot table, which will help with their survivability. Also, there was a bug fix for the Wraithtide set where it was actually triggering more frequently than it should have been. And so they fixed that bug. They also added a debuff tracker to see how long the cooldown on that set bonus is before you can get healed once again. And then for gems, the tier 1 and tier 6 powers had a visual bug where if you had either of those powers active, it would show that you just had increased crit rate, even though you weren't targeting something that was above 50% health. That was a visual bug. They've just fixed that issue. So if you log in and suddenly see that, oh shit, like I'm missing like 30% crit, what happened? Nothing happened. It was just a visual fix, so nothing to be alarmed about. The next change are the reward systems for basically all of the dungeons. This is probably one of the biggest changes that we'll see in this patch. They're increasing the gold rewards in contender and adept leagues in order to try to help smooth out progression in those leagues. As I think a lot of us know, as soon as you step foot in adept leagues, it's a pretty sizable, steep climb to kind of take on these challenging instances where you're getting new boss abilities, new mob abilities. Suddenly damage is a lot, like it climbs immensely. So by giving players gold a little bit more upfront and increasing the rate at which you acquire gold in the lower leagues or the lower levels of a league. So like for example, Adept 1, you're now getting a 24% increase in the gold acquired. By increasing the gold gained in those lower levels, it should increase the rate at which players are upgrading their gear, which in turn should smooth out the progression path through those leagues. This is mostly just an attempt at trying to smooth out progression, but it should still speed up the rate at which you're progressing through both Contender and Adept, because you're getting more gold to actually upgrade your gear. So don't be afraid to actually spend some of that gold now and really try to bump up your item level, because item level is king in both Contender and Adept leagues, and you really can't go wrong just by getting more stamina to increase your health pool, more primary stat like strength and intellect to increase your damage output. Just increasing those in general will smooth out your progress. And then the next change is a bit of a redistribution of some of the upgrade materials. Magic Essence is used to upgrade some of the higher level pieces of equipment, and the cost for those upgrades got pretty steep, to the point where you would essentially get gated by Magic Essence. Materia felt like you were swimming in it, like you get so much materia that you're not really concerned about it as a resource. So they're reducing how much materia you get and trying to balance out that level of progression where you need to still get enough materia to not get gated by it, but you're not swimming in it anymore. And then likewise, Magic Essence, you will get a lot more of it, so you don't feel like you're starved of it. So overall, just a little bit of a redistribution of these upgrade materials. And then there are some updates for the Eternal reward scaling. So first off, in Eternal, you now get an increased chance to get Marks of Fellowship. So now you have a 50% chance of acquiring it. Before it was 15, where it kind of felt bad to run Eternal when you're trying to buy some of those upgrade material chests from the vendor. You were kind of gated by not having enough marks, and the solution to getting marks was to basically run quick play on your max level character or max geared character. So it kind of just felt bad, and now this update is to help alleviate some of those friction points and now reward players for running more Eternal dungeons by giving them Marks of Fellowship. In addition, the chance to drop socketed items is going to increase in Eternal 5 or higher. So if you're just trying to grind out for items with sockets and items with empowered sockets, you're going to have a smoother experience trying to get those items. And then we're getting some hero updates. So Alarian is getting a little bit of a single target damage boost, if I'm not mistaken. His Celestial Shot, which is basically his filler ability, is getting its damage increased by 20%. I don't think that really affects him too much in single target, because I don't think you use Celestial Shot that much. High Wind Arrow, however, is getting a 20% damage increase, and I do know Alarian uses this in both AoE and single target, so that should be a pretty decent bump. And then Heartseeker Barrage getting a damage increase, which again helps his single target. And then ricochets now have 50% of the power of the initial hit for both Heartseeker Barrage and High Wind Arrow. So I think this is a nerf from 60%, if I'm not mistaken. They don't list what the original value was. I believe it's 60%. So they're hitting his AoE very slightly maybe, but they're compensating by giving him more single target, and in fact losing that 10% cleave or ricochet damage should probably be offset by the 20% High Wind Arrow, but I don't know the exact math on it. Overall though, it should be a pretty decent bump for Alarian. I do know he was on the weaker side of things. He has very good upfront AoE burst, but that's basically it. His single target was definitely lacking. Next up, we have the Resurgent Winds proc, now stacks up to 2 times. Unfortunately, it's been a while since I've played Alarian, so I don't remember what this proc does, but being able to stack something like this, I'm sure is well appreciated. Then there are a couple bug fixes, which I don't know if these equate to damage increases or not, so I can't really speak to them. And then the legendaries, however, got a few updates. So the Shimmering Silver Cape, the legendary, got a duration on Shimmer increased to 9 seconds up from 5 seconds, which is pretty solid, almost 100% increase. The next legendary is the Chain of Star Striker's Ascent. It looks like it got a little bit of a nerf, if I'm understanding this correctly. The buff that you're getting is no longer going to be applied to high wind arrows that are mid-flight. It'll only work on arrows that you fire off as you acquire the buff. I don't know if this is a bug fix or if this is something that's good for Alarian, if this maybe nerfs one of his better legendaries in favor of, you know, maybe going for the legendary cape or something like that. I'll let you Alarian players fill me in the comments down below. The next few changes are for Mako, and it looks like she's getting a bit of a damage redistribution and balancing. So the first thing is that her damage on Twin Souls Army of One, which I believe is her spirit ability, that is being reduced by 30%. Her Stone Fist Barrage is being increased by 110% because I guess the previous patch, which was supposed to apply a 12% damage increase, wasn't properly applied. So they're applying another increase to bring it up to a total of 110% damage. So we'll see how that goes. Her Lashing Storm Kick damage is being increased by 87.5%. Her Stone Fist Barrage and Lashing Storm Kick damage now heals Mako for 100% of the damage dealt, down from 200. So her self-healing is taking a little bit of a hit, it looks like. Spirited Vortex is being increased by 35%. And then her Twin Souls Bulwark, which is her clone, I believe, this is now getting another one of those duration displays with the yellow bar that we showed earlier. And then it looks like we got a bit of a bug fix to Unwavering Spirit. I'm not sure if this is her spirit proc that increases her armor value, but it looks like it was infinitely growing. And I'm not sure if that results in some unintended survivability increases for Mako that were being abused. So I guess we'll see if Mako's gonna be suddenly getting one shot a little bit more frequently and unexpectedly. And then it looks like Mako got a couple talent updates. So Perfect Storm is going to increase the damage by 60% of the power of the initial kick, where it was 50% before. Peace Field healing is reduced by down to 30% from 40. Stone Guard now replenishes Stone Shield for 10% of any self-healing that you take, where it was 8% before, so got a little bit of a buff there. The Shattering Obelisk legendary now causes your clone to accumulate 18% of the damage it takes, where it was 15% before, and it now deals damage to 5 targets before it has a damage fall off, where it was only 1 target before. The legendary Neck took a bit of a hit, where it increases the final strike of Stone Fist Barrage by 60%, where it was 100% before. So that's a pretty sizable nerf to that legendary, and I assume we'll see some changes there. And then the legendary boots will now always apply the damage effect, even when there's a reapplication. So this means that Mako's no longer going to be losing some damage from that legendary effect. Helena got a bit of an adjustment too, where she's getting a damage increase on all of her hero abilities. And then she also has a bug fix where sometimes her toughness would reset down to 0, which caused her to sometimes just simply fall over. Vigor got a bit of a damage increase as well, increasing all of his hero abilities by 25%. And then Sylvie, same thing. She's also having her hero abilities increased by 25%. Sylvie also gets an AoE damage boost, where her Shroomsplosion damage is now reduced beyond 8 targets, where it was 5 before. So in those instances where you're doing mass AoE, Sylvie is going to have even more burst. The Boom and Bloom Shrooms talent is now increased to 5 Boom Shrooms, where it was only 3 when you would use it on an ally. So I assume this is going to be an increase in burst healing for Sylvie. And then Tarek got a bug fix where there was an issue where Hammerstorm just wouldn't be able to be cast. I know Hammerstorm is probably his top ability throughout a dungeon, so this should be a nice bug fix to go forward. I know it wasn't always replicated. It seems like it was isolated to a Facebreaker interaction. So now that that bug fix has been updated, Hammerstorm should now be consistently going out. And then finally, Artios had a bug fix where Apocalypse was continuing to play even though the cast was being canceled or interrupted. And now for some of the dungeon changes. Everdon Grove, Malga now gets a new ability called Killshot, which instantly one-shots Akari. This is the deer that's a part of that encounter. This only goes off if all players are dead. So this is a way to force reset the encounter. I know Akari has a bunch of bugs where sometimes it kind of gets stuck. So I think by resetting the fight entirely should help kind of reset Akari so that the actual interactions between Malga and Akari should consistently go off. But also the Bloodstone Goliath that you encounter throughout the dungeon, their Earth Core upheaval, those circles, there were some instances where they wouldn't disappear, and now they are correctly being removed. So you no longer have to play a guessing game if these are real circles or not. Probably the biggest change coming to Everdawn is the Outrunner Bola Throw ability being reduced by 40%. If you pulled a bunch of these at the same time, this Bola Throw ability would sometimes be in sync and cause some players to just unexpectedly get one shot if the Outrunners happen to target the same player. And also this Bola Throw ability could not be interrupted except through crowd control abilities. So by reducing the damage of this ability, there's going to be less one-shots going out unexpectedly. So overall, I think this is probably a pretty good change to see come through. And then otherwise, throughout the rest of these dungeons, it looks like there are a bunch of visual or bug fixes. So like Sailor's Abyss, you can no longer use movement abilities to dodge the Siren Song ability to make you jump off the ledge. Urak had a visual fix for Fleshbroker Drazul's Conjure Scythe. There were instances where the scythe would come out nowhere near where the arrow was pointing. I myself have been killed by this ability several times. So now it should show a correct representation on where the scythe is going to be coming out. Inside of Heart of Tuzari, the Sickle's Throw Dagger ability is also decreased by 38%. This is the exact same logic behind the Outrunner's Bola Throw ability being decreased by 40%. So good to see some balancing there. And that pretty much summarizes all the changes that are coming through this patch notes. There are a few things to fix, such as whispers still not being able to go through across different instances. It's very hard to communicate with friends when you're trying to group up and you don't have each other added on like Discord or something like that. So getting the fixes for whispers coming through will be very nice, but that's not included on this patch. But that's going to be it for me. If you want to see more Fellowship news and content in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay notified when those go live. But this was GooberTroy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.